Good evening. Today is June 12th. We're at the Netherwood Elementary School. It's now 5:34. May I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to the employment, future employment, history of a particular person or persons, and the employment of a particular person, agency, and matters of litigation. Ooh.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see a full house, or almost a lot of people here. Excuse the slight delay in starting. We had a full executive session. We'll have to have a second one after the meeting. So at this time, can I have a motion to leave executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. We're now in normal session. And we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are no agenda modifications for tonight. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. That brings us to Pride.
Okay, we do have one formal piece of Pride this evening, but I'll begin with our informal Pride, which we do at every meeting. I would like to congratulate the Hyde Park Relay for Life team this year. And the Relay for Life team is a group in Hyde Park of Netherwood, North Park, and our transportation department. This year, they rose $12,000 for the Relay for Life cause, and they also won the Team Spirit Award. So Hyde Park was tremendously well represented. Congratulations. And a very special thanks to the people who organized this event and worked very hard. New this year, it was actually came from Netherwood, but new this year was the Purple Butterflies. And all of the offices and buildings in the district received an envelope, and it just got passed around, and you could buy as many butterflies as you wanted. They were $1 a piece, and everybody displayed their butterflies. We taped them up on windows, and I know central office, definitely we all participated, and then to motivate and recognize that the relay was happening the next day, they asked that everybody wore purple on the Friday before the event, and many of us came to work wearing purple, and it was a great team spirit. Even if you didn't participate, you were able to participate. Healthy North Park is an event that happens every year. Margaret Robley and Lisa Hechtspear had this initiative, and basically for the entire month of May, you can fill out every day that you exercise for more than 20 minutes, or any amount of exercise, but any exercise, you fill out your co-op cars. And again, anyone in the district can participate. I certainly exercise is something that is a big part of my personal life, and I have a variety of things that I do, and I fill out all my co-op cars, so I was happy to participate. This year, North Park broke a new record. They had 3,969 co-op cars that equaled to 79,380 minutes of exercise. So again, kudos to North Park Elementary for their Healthy North Park initiative and for opening that up to other district employees to participate if they so choose. I am going to read an email from Mr. Ryan Wade, and it is from the music department because there was much to celebrate. So forgive me for reading, but there was too much here. On May 16th, the 7th and 8th grade symphonic and concert bands went to Music in the Parks. The 7th and 8th grade orchestras went on May 30th, along with the 7th and 8th grade select choir. This competition is an educated performance by each ensemble who are rated by international experts in the particular ensemble type. I keep saying that. These performances culminate in a ceremony at Six Flags where trophies are awarded to participating groups. This year, both bands and both orchestras received an excellent rating for their performances, and the select choir received a superior rating, all of which are remarkable achievements. These ratings indicate a demonstration of technical excellence, a solid sense of musicality, and a diligent work ethic. Most impressively, however, is the awarding to both groups on 2 separate days of the Esprit de Corps Award, which is similar to an award of best citizenship/sportsmanship and is awarded to only one school each day based on the overall respect and community displayed toward other schools. The host school and the staff of the festivals of music. To win it once speaks volumes for a music student's behavior, but to win it both times is truly an honor. So we would like to recognize Mrs. Marcia Gates, Mr. Sam Newsom, Mrs. Catherine Rimpf, Miss Marissa Bettina, and Mr. Ryan Wade. Congratulations, but more importantly, congratulations to our students. We are in award season, and myself, along with several board members, have had the opportunity and administrators to attend several events. The Scholar Athlete Breakfast, which is a regional breakfast, was held this month. Our Scholar Athletes were John Ackerman and Sarah Danielson, so congratulations to them. They were recognized. It's a multi-county athlete breakfast and award ceremony. We had the athletic awards and banquet. That was a wonderful event where all of our athletes are recognized for their participation. That's held at the Grandview and was very well attended and a great ceremony. And an alumni was the keynote speaker. And we certainly had the FDR awards ceremony last week, and several awards and hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships were awarded, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some of our students receiving full rides to schools that cost $60,000 a year, to all kinds of community awards. The number of awards that our local community organizations, our Teachers Association, you name it, all contribute to giving our students scholarships and awards, and it's a ceremony that is very moving. And last, and I probably missed some things, but I had the privilege of being the speaker for the National Arts Honor Society induction this year, and it was a wonderful event. So there's no shortage of pride when you get to the end of the school year, and pride for all of our students that come to us each and every day. So not just those that win the awards at the end of the year. We take time to celebrate all of our students. So with that, when we have a group, whether it's our cheerleaders or our artists or our musicians, that really achieve something that is outstanding, we do like to take a chance, the opportunity to publicly recognize them. We certainly can't do that for every group, but one of the benchmarks to bring somebody in is to arrive at a national contest. And so this year, it's our honor and our privilege, and Doug and I will come up to the front to recognize the FDR varsity crew team as a whole, but in particular, the J4 team that made it to nationals down in Princeton. So give us a moment and we'll come up. FDR crew is near and dear to all of our hearts. I know we have at least one board member who rode for FDR, and but it is a great opportunity to live in the Hudson Valley and to have a stellar crew team. And we are so proud of you guys to make it to nationals. I hope you had a blast. Not only did you make it to nationals, you placed really high. So, I can't remember, Harry?
You placed third in the state. Third in the state.
Third in the state. So, at this, I would like to introduce your coach, Harry Harrington. So, welcome, Harry. And we would like to call up the J4, the guys that were in the boat that went to nationals. So, Garrett Burnett. Yeah, we get some pictures, yep. Facetious. I had that right the other night, I had it right. Alex Facetious. I was pretty good with the name. Zach Schiffer. Nick Senchak. And Neil Tompkins. Okay, smile for the cameras. Any pictures, the parents who would like a picture? Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah, the coach, absolutely.
Had a uniform.
Actually,
Get the right color.
I think he's in uniform.
It's Harry's uniform.
Okay, you're done, right?
I am. I don't know if anybody had anything or if I missed anything.
Anybody else have any pride they want to mention? Oh, anybody else? Okay, let's moving on to the Netherwood Elementary School presentation. Mr. Wirt.
Does she have anything for superintendent's report?
Yeah.
Does she have anything for superintendent's?
Oops.
Good evening,
In
everyone.
mine, it has Netherwood first.
Yeah.
And just a brief moment of additional pride. 3 out of the 5 students there
Yeah,
are not
I know, I
bona
skipped
fide
over.
students. Just saying.
See, it's funny because I must have an old one.
I think it's the one furthest from the river.
This is going to be difficult with the mic. Would you mind giving me a page now? Or, Aviva, would you mind? Thank you. Thank you. So welcome to Netherwood. Several of you commented as you walked the building, there have been some changes since last year here. You noted the hallway painting. the blue and the red. That was done by facilities over the summer, and it really did brighten the building. Additionally, this wall over here, I'd like to point out in my presentation, but if you notice, it's pretty cool looking. It's all done by the students. Each fifth grader gets a brick, and they decorate it with something they care about. It's our caring wall. And every year, we're going to be adding to it. That's 2 years worth, well, 1.5 years worth of classes right now. But if you get a chance, I encourage you to go over and look at the wall at some point. Also, some additional work by current fourth grade students, their state history projects and such. So, go ahead, Amy. You're right.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Get the page down on the far right. Not that. Hit the escape key top. Okay. This is becoming more.
That's it. Get facilities involved.
Don't we have to pull up the presentation first?
Actually, in the whole thing.
This is why you gotta put them in one presentation. Saying this over and over again.
But that's not his, that's not the
The
presentation.
one on the left. There you go.
Just rolls, 'cause you do my meeting.
Alt F11. Alt F11 will do it.
I'll try.
Hey,
Let's see.
hey, guess what? It worked here. So the first slide, obviously, there's a lot of interest in our testing data. This slide essentially shows each of the grade levels, 2013, 2014, on the left-hand side. And in 2013, our kids took the ELA test for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So the current 4th graders, as 3rd graders, 34% of them scored level 3 and 4. If you look how many scored 2s, 3s, and 4s, 70%, and so on down the slide. You know, for last year's 4th graders and all our 5th graders scored 85% levels 2s, 3s, and 4s on the state ELA. You can see the rest of the data there for ELA and math. We continue to work with the new testing, I guess is the best way to think about the test scores and how they was going. It is certainly challenging. I'm very curious to see this year's test. It was challenging. On the far right, our local F&P, that's Fountas and Pinnell. It's our benchmark reading assessment levels. Kindergarten, we don't do it beginning first quarter. They are still, the teachers right now are still collecting their 4th quarter data, which is why I can't share with the end of year. So what you see up there is first quarter and 3rd quarter. And ideally, what you'd love to see is an increase in percentages from left to right. That means that more and more of our kids are reaching benchmark. Understanding, too, that the target changes. So a level D, middle of the year for kindergarten, becomes a level C by the end of the year. And as you can see, 37% of our first graders in first quarter and up to 68% 3rd quarter. So
Shouldn't be too
we're
long.
pretty pleased with the growth. There's always more work to do. We're constantly looking at our kids and trying to find out what we can do to support them. We've been very fortunate with their AIS staff, 2 great reading teachers, Mrs. Turner, Mrs. Bale, along with several wonderful TAs, and just frankly, the classroom teachers are doing a ton of the AIS work and the interventions as well. So it is a team effort, it's a village, whatever you want to call it, but it does take a lot to help kids move along and really go at the pace that we want them to go at. So again, our testing data. Our goals this year for our building were basically 2, and the first one was improving our student performance in the K-5 F&P assessment. The data is still out for end of the year. I want to say that we've made some very good growth with the kiddos. And by enhancing staff implementation of the Common Core curriculum. I was just looking at our professional development offerings from this year. We've offered well over 50 professional developments in this building. That includes grade level collaborations, work with Kim Neisel and Jim Kreiser, who did yeoman's duty coming to the building and working with staff during morning PD sessions, as well as just roundtables, where the teachers were able to come for about an hour in the morning and just talk about what was on their minds, what they felt they needed, what we could do to really move things along. So we've been working with the Common Core. The teachers have done a great job aligning their lessons with Common Core. We look at the lesson plans, the observations, the walkthroughs. And if you walk into any classroom in this building, you will see I can statements. And with most of those I can statements, there's alignment to the Common Core curriculum with them. So it's been a really good focus. And the staff here has done a fantastic job working with the Common Core. With all of its, you know, the math stuff is a little challenging at times for some of the homework that goes home. They've also done a great job working with the families on how to help their children with the work, with the Common Core homework that's been going on. And then improve community connections by strengthening existing academic outreach programs, developing new opportunities for a safe learning environment for students. That first part, community connections, again, most of the credit goes to classroom teachers. As we had open houses this year, teachers shared with me the handouts they were giving to the parents, to families. And to every single one of them, there was information that's, here's how to get to Engage New York, here's some resources to help you help your children, and that's been ongoing throughout the year as well. For the building perspective, we did our academic fair spaghetti supper, as we always have, but there was a really neat twist to it this year. We did 2 common core focus rooms, an ELA focus and math focus, and then our 5th grade students actually did STEM projects and led the community through the STEM projects that night and also during the school day. So really phenomenal opportunities with the kids in this thing. And a safe, nurturing environment, I do take a lot of pride in this building that we do provide a safe environment for kids. I think we do very well when conditions are challenging, and we do our very, very best to keep kids safe all times. So our community and parent involvement, we have network parents here who can tell you what involvement is like in this building, but we do pride ourselves. Our PTA, a phenomenal group of dedicated parents, about a $20,000 budget, all done through fundraising, and a lot of that goes to just making sure kids have equal opportunity. There's not a child who goes without because of their ability to pay or not able to pay. And that goes down to book fair. Every child in the building gets a book fair, and that's the parents making that happen. Our academic fair is up where I mentioned. On the right-hand side, you can see kind of in that picture 2 of our 5th grade students balloons strapped to their heads. They were explaining static electricity to 2 little kindergarten, 1st grade kiddos lower in the picture. That was our STEM fair. So instead of the traditional science fair, we did hands-on guided activities with kiddos. And the credit there is all to our 5th grade teachers who just came up with that idea and ran with it, and the kids who did it. STEM fair day was exactly that. Instead of being at night, it was during the day where the kids cycled through it. NES Fits Fit, right up there on the wall. This is a program run by Lori Quilty, Jess Wheeler, Green Clerkin, and maybe Adrian Berg and several other people. And what it is, it's a phenomenal program. Picture on the lower left, you see a guy in a chef hat. It's Larry Anthony. He was a parent in this building. He isn't anymore, but he comes back 3 times a year, and he shows the children how to create a healthy snack, literally. We use a document camera, a projector, and he stands up there and he shows the kid, here's how you make a smoothie. And the teachers create it. They show it to kids. All the kids partake in a healthy snack. And then for the second part of the activity, we go to the gymnasium, and Mrs. Clerk and Mrs. Quilty lead them through some kind of physical exercise. And that can be a conga line, it can be dancing, it can be all sorts of fun stuff. I try to hide because, wow. But anyways, it is a phenomenal activity. The kids love it. It's one of those things they talk about well after. And then this year, for the first time ever, it has not happened yet. Next Friday at 7 p.m., Miss Morgan Trevor, our music teacher, she's been here for about 2 years now, loves musicals, loves Broadway shows. And she brought that passion to this building when she decided, let's do a musical. So next Friday, we are producing our debut summer camp musical with the entire 5th grade as the cast and crew. So if you're around, it's our ice cream social also, but at 7 o'clock, it's free, and ideally on the front lawn, you will see our musical. They have been working their hearts out for this one, so it should be fun. Our community involvement, it has been amazing this year. The Rotary Club in Hyde Park donates dictionaries to every 3rd grade in the district. And again, they did that with us. The picture in the upper right is Mrs. Walsh's class with all the kids holding their dictionaries. And that's been going on for years, and I just want to recognize that because it is really a treasured thing from the Rotary. The second one, Light Up Blue and Autism Speaks from Marist. Just phenomenal happenstance. We were contacted by a college student, Chris Collins, and he said, I'd like to come present about autism to your building. Well, we haven't come in, he presented to some staff, and said yes, he needs to. He and his colleagues presented to every class in the building about understanding autism, being sensitive to autism, and they did a fantastic job. The kids and the teachers really appreciated it. Additionally, the building got into it as well. The lower right-hand corner, sorry, the pictures aren't showing it better. But those are our 5th graders, I believe, on our playground equipment dressed up in blue for Light Up Blue and Awareness of Autism Day. And the building really wrapped itself around that as well. You may be aware that we have the 812 communications classes here. Several students have autism, as well as just kids right in the regular mainstream. So that kind of awareness is really important as our own students begin to learn how to work as a community, which is a huge focus in this building. The outdoor classroom, local Girl Scout troop, Erica Vanderwater, that family is actually leading that with this year as part of a Girl Scout project. created an outdoor classroom for you. If you get a chance, go to the library, look out the window. It's a series of benches. She fundraised, she built, she constructed, and dedicated just a few weeks ago with Dr. Rychik there. It is a phenomenal resource, and the staff is still trying to figure out how to use it well, but I've seen classes out there doing Reader's Theater. I've seen classes out there just having discussions. And we're thinking about incorporating it next year as a teaching space for how to use the playground, stuff like that. So just a phenomenal resource. The Nature Trail, a very similar project that's still underway with Laura Strader, our nurse, and her Girl Scout troop. They're going to be revitalizing Netherwoods Nature Trail, which has been there for over a decade, but it really needs to clean up, and they'll be doing that for us. And then we've taken some amazing field trips this year that were free, and free field trips are like wonderful. And in particular, these three were amazing. Vassar Farms, our third graders, and also Omega Institute. They went and saw not just neat stuff, but they saw at Vassar, and Joni's here, she can speak to it better than I can, but at Omega, they saw a living ecosystem. So they clean their water using natural resources. It's very cool. And kids were able to participate in that. Vassar Farms, same kind of idea. Rita's Ice Cream, our elder 812 students went to Rita's Ice, is it ice cream or something else?
Italian ice.
Thank you, guys are great. I get ice cream when I'm there. So at the Italian ice place, they went and visited the shop and learned how to make the Italian ice and how to run the cash register, all sorts of cool stuff. So the community's reached out to the building, and we've gone and we've enjoyed these opportunities. And the last one, Michelle Petrucci is here for one art class with one fourth grade class. And she got them into the Dream Rocket Project, which is a collaboration between the National Fiber Institute and fiber meaning cloth. National Fiber Institute and NASA, where they're actually creating a cloth of children's work around a rocket. And the kids' contributions are up there on the left. So just really neat community connections. And social learning is a huge point of pride in this building. We really do focus on it well. And you've heard of Responsive Classroom the past couple of years when we did a demonstration with the board. And that really is a grassroots piece that came from the staff and a huge interest in this building. And it's part of who we are. And I can look at our discipline data and say that we do well because of Responsive Classroom, the work that teachers are doing with the kids, teaching them how to work in society and how to work in the classroom. As part of that, second step is a program recommended by Linda Kafka about 2-3 years ago, and she actually worked with Marie Dimes, I think it's related through Dutchess County Mental Health. Marie and Aviva wrote a grant and got a kit, a second step kit for every classroom in the building. And we're going to run full force with that next year. I'm thinking that the two together, Responsive Classroom and Second Step, will have a real benefit for the social and emotional learning of our kids. And some other neat things. Kindergarten Garden was just a nice little project started by Meredith McLean, our social worker, and Patty Ackley. There were some struggles with behavior in the classroom for the little guys. And they came up with a way to recognize good behavior, a garden. So every time a kid did a nice act of kindness, it created a flower with that specific act on it. Not necessarily the child's name, but the act. And over the course of the year, they created a garden. We're actually going to take that pilot and replicate it for the building next year out on what you see as the weatherboard right now. That will be the Netherwood Kindness Garden for next year. It's just a nice way of recognizing what we want to see in students. And it wouldn't be complete if I didn't recognize the stuff the fifth grade does. I mentioned the carrying wall, and I do encourage you to look at that. The kids have been working on it. I think they do a great job. And Connie Freer, one of our 1-to-1 is a phenomenal artist in her own right. She actually works with kids that create them. Our buddies, that's where our fifth graders work for kindergartners. That's been going on for years. The food project, if you look out in the lobby, there's a bunch of blue bags and 267 and counting. Our fifth graders, Mike, Stephen, Kareem, and Anna Gnafo started this last year. And literally grab a blue bag on your way out. It's empty. Take it home. Fill it up with food as you can. Non-perishable food. Bring it back, drop it off, and grab it on the bag. It's that simple. We then take the food to the local food pantry. And they have collected over 267 bags of food so far that have gone to local food pantries to benefit people who don't have the food. And it's this nice project that fifth graders take care of. And then, of course, UNICEF, our fifth graders work every year to raise money for UNICEF and Halloween pieces and all that. And there's a ton more stuff that this community does. I just try to hit the big highlights. And with that said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention 5 very special people in this district. Edith Stratton, our orchestra teacher, Candy Walsh, 3rd grade, 1st grade, kindergarten, multiple grades, Susan Joseph, 2nd grade, Debbie Houston, math TA, but she is a teacher, and Patty Stalker, our teacher, all retiring this year. And it's going to be a great loss for the building and wish them the very, very best. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Rick. I think at this time I'd like to declare an early release for students that might want to get some work done. You know, could go home and do homework, of course, but, you know.
Congratulations again, guys.
Okay, do you have a seat?
Yeah.
Just to straighten out my bad, I skipped over the superintendent's report. I don't know why, but I did. So we're going to go back to that. Superintendent's report.
I just have three very brief things, because we have a lot of formal presentations. We will give an update on our sign project at the next board meeting. We will also present the exit poll survey results at the next board meeting. And I wanted to say that today, and Perry, I know I'm not going to say the name of it correctly, but the administrative team participated in a 3-hour training course for incident command, and it was an incredible course. Bob Bloom, our own safety coordinator, ran the training. It was great. We had 20 administrators in the room having firsthand training on incident command, and we all got a lot out of it. There was a test at the end. We all took our test, and the certificates will be copied to me. But again, this was a huge step, and I'd like to thank Perry Sheldon, who recommended that our administrators go through this training. So it was very worthwhile. We will now enter the phase of making sure that we practice what we learned today, because you don't want to wait till a crisis to practice. And I'd like to thank especially Aviva Kafka, who is our safety, district-wide safety coordinator, who arranged for the training. So thank you, Aviva. It was great. I got so much out of it, and I know everybody else did. And hopefully we can send the board the link to that video. The guy who wore all the hats, that was very entertaining. But on a very serious level, we do have a safety system in our district that is recognized in the state as being one of the best, and this just took us to the next level. The only remaining administrators to go that did not come to the training are the assistant principals, and we will arrange for them to get the training next. And actually, you know, it wasn't just administrators. My apologies. Debbie was there. We had a number of point people in the building who are also identified as being part of our safety team. So, you know, Deb Brosen took the training, Terry, Joan, so several people, our food services director. So it was a great training, and really appreciate that we could do that.
Okay. You're still up. We have a regional comparative performance data presentation.
Have the button pusher? This is right here?
Yeah. So-
Okay, for a number of years, every time we give some data points, the board rightly so has asked the question, well, how do we compare with other districts? So I determined that before the question is answered again, I would provide an answer, and was happy to do so. I'm gonna, where are the slides?
Oops, that's odd.
What's going on?
They were there when I got there.
I don't know if you push this.
Mine.
Here you actually, I think it's the next one.
Okay. Before we look at this slide, I will say that on the slide, on these slides, I only have 8 school districts represented. The full study included 13, actually 14 school districts, but at a certain point, you could only have so many data points and fit them on one slide. And the 13 school districts, the ones that were eliminated didn't have anything that proved any other findings than what is represented there. So again, also, the original study included further data points, but what I included here was the percent of students with disabilities, free and reduced lunch rates, English regions passing rates, and graduation rates. So if you look at the green line on the bottom, so one of the things you want to do is one of the things that the board and we have discussed for a number of years is if we're going to compare ourselves with other districts, there has to be some point of comparison. So free and reduced lunch rate is a benchmark for performance, a link to performance, and also the percentage of students with disabilities. So you need to say that there's some range of likeness before we start to compare ourselves, because certainly we wouldn't want to compare ourselves to a special act district that had 90% of students with disabilities. We also don't want to compare ourselves with school districts that have a 5% free and reduced lunch rate, because then you're not comparing apples to oranges or similar schools. So of the 14 original schools, which were also similar, these were the ones we narrowed it down to. So the first green line is students with disabilities, and you can see we're all within a 10-point range of the number of students with disabilities. The blue line is free and reduced lunch rates. So we're within range with Dover having less than most of us, and then Tarrytown with a considerable amount more. Tarrytown is at 50% free and reduced lunch rate. We are at 44. So, the year that this data was taken from, sorry, we're at 44 now. The year that this data was, we're still at 46. Sorry. But so again, we're within a range. You wouldn't want to compare us again if it was, 100% free and reduced lunch, because that brings on a whole different set of problems. Likewise on the opposite end. So those two lines are to show that we're really comparing, similar schools. And so what are the results of the similar schools? You can see on this slide that, again, with a drop from Ellenville, and this is only 1 year, we could certainly trend this over multiple years. I do want to say that I did conduct a study with 4 of these schools a number of years ago, and the results are similar. So I'm not seeing the trend change very much, at least for those 4 schools. But you have a couple of peaks and valleys, but again, for the most part, we're all performing within a range. But with that, you always look and say, well, what can the data tell us? So I'm going to, the next slide. I meant to say that also in the original data set, I included the results of the 4th grade English language arts, the 8th grade English language arts, in addition to 11th grade and graduation. The other data points I put into the original comparison were English language learners, percentage of white students. So there were many more data points, but just to narrow, and again, none of them threw any of these schools out of the trend that we're seeing. So I reduced the data points, but I still have them all if anybody wanted to see how these schools performed on the 4th grade ELA, the 8th grade, etc. So on this slide simply shows the English regions and the graduation rate for these school districts. And so what you'll notice is that while Dover had a graduation of 80%, their English region's pass rate was 90%. So that's interesting. You would expect maybe higher graduation rate for Dover, but again, 1 year of data. But you will see, so this addresses the question, how do we fare in like schools? And we're at or above like schools with our graduation rate and our English region. So for Hyde Park, for example, we're higher than some for our English, and we're also higher than some for our graduation. What this data pointed me in the direction of was the one school that did stand out is Tarrytown. Tarrytown has the highest poverty rate among the group and the highest graduation rate. I took it off here, but they also have the highest percent of English language learners. Maybe them and Ossian probably has higher English language learners, but Tarrytown is a significantly higher English learning language ESL population than we do. So good news for us. We have a lot of connections with Tarrytown. I personally know the English department chair, who is also their teachers union president. So she's a very good personal friend. I know the high school principal there. So I know if I call the high school principal, we would definitely be very welcome for a visit. And Joanna Murphy in Aviva's department, the special ed coordinator, most recently came from Tarrytown. So we will be visiting Tarrytown because in this study, they actually spiked as a district that had the highest graduation rate with the highest poverty rate. So a couple of pieces of good news. Hyde Park isn't standing out there, either outperforming or underperforming schools within a similar range. We are a little bit above some, a little bit below some in some areas, but we're pretty much on par with similar schools. And through this study, we've identified a school that's worth visiting and taking a look at. So. Any questions?
I don't really have any questions, but this is fascinating data. I appreciate your time that you put into this.
Thank you.
He'll catch up.
As the Viva head says, we'll have a special education services plan presentation.
So I'm going to present here with Heather Dennis, our Director of Special Education, and just introduce that the Special Education Services Plan has been a requirement of the State Education Department and in a recent board policy, so it's a new thing that has to be reviewed annually at the board level. So this will be, if not a presentation, certainly an annual event. And it really, besides some basic required elements, has the plan for 1450. What classes are we offering in what buildings? So the plan will include a definition of the terms for all of the different classifications for students with disabilities, a description of the program options that are offered not only by level but also in the buildings, which buildings are located in. The program objectives, so the working toward the least restrictive environment for students with disabilities, and then the programs by the buildings. So it's available online through the Hyde Park Central School District website, and if you have any specific questions about the plan at all, you have the document. It will be posted online, and then you can call our department for specific questions. And it's not posted yet. We're waiting for after this meeting. So it will be posted on People Services. It's on the Board Docs right now.
So, Viva, was there another slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, it said what we just said. We're speaking with a very short. Yeah.
Okay.
You like that?
Yes, right? But are there any questions?
Aviva, did you just say that it's on board docs?
It should be a document within Board Docs.
Is it in the library? Because it's not attached to the agenda.
Yes, it is. It's attached where you're voting on.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See, here we go.
Now have master's facility plan update. Wayne is quite ill, so he's not here tonight, but we have, Elliot can help? Yeah, okay.
Again, Wayne is not here, but last year we experienced very difficult conditions at Haviland Middle School, and while our facilities steering committee has been meeting regularly, and previously this year we presented a five-year plan, not a five-year plan, a master facilities update, sometimes the conditions of your buildings warrant that you maybe do things in a different timeline. And so, okay, and so we thought we'd start with some of the progress that we've made. And, you know, over the years, you know, we've taken care of the high school athletic facility, we took care of the boiler project. But during the completion of the boiler project, which we originally intended to phase in and thought we had a little bit more time, it really became evident that there were issues that beyond the boiler replacement that needed to be addressed sooner rather than later. And glad Eric's here today, but we had to close school a couple of times, and probably about 3 to 5 weeks where we were rearranging the schedule on a daily basis to move 13 to all the way up to 16 classes or so on a daily basis. And the system we had in place to keep the school open and running this year was Elliot was getting up somewhere between 3:30, 4 o'clock with his guys. I know Eric was waking up early, and I got a 5:30, 6 o'clock phone call every day for pretty much a month to say, how does it look? Can we bring the children in? Can you manage the schedule? And it got serious enough that we almost at one point had to consider things such as, can we move 6th grade in Hyde Park Elementary if we had to close the wing entirely? So we are now at what we consider pretty much an emergency situation. Ellie's department, and through the board's authorization and the release of capital reserve funds, we were able to take care of a substantial amount of the work. I want to thank Eric, I want to thank the staff. It took a lot of patience, it took a lot of sweaters, it took a lot of early mornings, but we survived and we educated the children. Maybe not under ideal conditions, but the alternative was to not educate them, and that's our last resort. So we made it through the winter, and when we reviewed in our project team what were our options, well, the options were to wait until we really got our next capital project together, or do we do something and become a little bit more proactive and say, okay, we know it's going to take a vote to conduct a capital project to update the rest of the heating facility at Haviland Middle School, and the timeline with SED approval is such that if we go out for a vote even if we went out for a vote yesterday, we still would not have any work done for this coming winter. So this coming winter is twofold. Keep your fingers crossed, and thank you, Elliot, and your department for all of the repair work that you've done that was unanticipated. So we're pretty confident we can get through this winter. We will have to monitor the situation closely, but we do not feel that we can wait 2 winters to go out to the public and say, this heating situation needs to be, the heating system at Haviland, the HVAC system at Haviland needs to be fixed completely. So we are veering away from our master facility plan. We describe this as we have needs and we have wants. And right now, we have one serious need, and that's the HVAC system at Haviland. Next to that, everything on the list is a want. Since this is not my presentation, I hope I said something that was on that slide. I probably said something that was on a lot of the slides. In our master
identified, we ranked all of our items of what needed to be taken care of in 1 to 3 years, and they got a 1A. We are now at the point where we can't wait the 1 to 3 years. We need to act now for the heating system at Haviland. So it is a priority. It had been a priority. If you remember back, we originally scheduled this as a phase-in, and we are phasing it in. But we want to phase it in a little faster than we anticipated. So the only change there for our phase-in plan is moving up the timeline. We also have an option that, and this has more to do with debt service, and we will look at this. This is our very first conversation, public conversation on this topic. But we also had one other building condition this year that caused us to say, if we're going to do an HVAC project, is there something else in the district that is of concern in that area? And certainly the condition, the moisture condition at North Park moved to that level. So one of the things we look at is our debt service, and when our debt service is falling off, and keeping our debt service even. And so we're not sure where we're landing at this point, but we thought we'd throw it out at right now that definitely need to move forward with the heating, possibly also take care of the North Park moisture control and fixing that. I already said that. Again, our debt service, the drop in the debt service will allow Hyde Park to go out for half a project value of about $4 million. We're working closely with Tetra Tech to develop a proposal, and it will be priced out separately, the Haviland heating and the North Park HVAC system. And we will come with a proposal as soon as we have some more specific numbers. We're meeting regularly. In order to only have one more year of our existing heating system, and based on the lag time for SED approval, to have a project done and completed so that the winter of 15-16, this is fixed, we would need to go out for a September vote to get authorization for another capital project. So as we work out the details on the scope of the project, we'll bring them forward very soon. We might even need an extra board meeting. But we're hoping to come to you on the 26th with some more details. We did, it was a very small meeting, Wayne was sick. Elliot ran the meeting, the facility steering forum. Some of the feedback from the facility steering forum, as I read through the minutes, was a concern over addressing a need at North Park when we're a year or two away at looking at another capacity study. If we were to determine to do a project at North Park, that would mean eliminating North Park from the mix of a school building that could close in the future. If you remember from our first initial study, one of the things that they absolutely look at is building condition, and they also look at geographic location. So considering that North Park is the northernmost part of our district, it pretty much, I'm not saying it does, but it pretty much self-selects between the building condition, the size of the school, and the location. But again, we put it out there now so that the board members have some time to think about it while we're gathering the numbers. It may be that we completely take it out of the project because we don't know the future of our elementary school buildings. And I'll add one other detail, and that is for a while we run school year round. And I feel if I don't make eye contact, I can't read what's going on.
I'm awake, I promise.
Where did I leave off? Year-round school, yes. For the past several years, we have been running around installing air conditioners and windows. We have one year-round program, and that's our extended school year for our students with individual education plans that require schooling year-round. We also run a summer bridge program. So we have year-round school, no matter how you slice it and dice it. We're constantly jockeying around, and we move our summer school from one place to the other. So there has been a lot of internal conversation of just designating the school for year-round, work our facility staff through the district so that that school is the last one cleaned at the end of the summer, and we have the proper conditions for education, because I will tell you that to bring our children in over the summer, we try to air condition as many of our special education classrooms, but we bring children into an unair conditioned building. And the air conditioning isn't the primary primary reason for looking at North Park. I think some of the board members have even said it, that some of the improvement projects we've done at North Park have buttoned that place up so much that we now have an interior moisture problem, and we have a ventilation system that is not working properly. It's enough to muddle us through, but with an improved ventilation, we can solve the moisture problem. If you remember, I think if people thought I needed my head examined, we needed to send the children home from North Park last year because we had unsafe conditions. It was basically an ice skating rink. It had never happened before. It was not only our school district, it happened throughout the state. It actually happened in Massachusetts and a few other states. It actually happened here, but in this building, but to a much lesser degree. So we know that we have a potential safety situation if we have moisture conditions at North Park. We have a temporary fix in that we've purchased and rented and gotten all kinds of dehumidifiers, and so we are able to manage the building right now. Plugging in a bunch of loud, noisy dehumidifiers is not a permanent fix. So again, tonight is just first initial consideration. What I am proposing is that we definitely think about a September vote for the heating at Haviland. We have a couple of weeks to think about, do we want to do a North Park and Haviland, and all the implications that brings in. There are some dates. Pre-referendum phase basically started, we started this in order to even develop a timeline. We needed to start it about a month or so ago. Even before that, we actually, it did beg the question why we put it out with our election, our most recent election, and there was not enough time, even lead time, to appropriately get that done. And it is a separate topic, but so that's the timeline, and that leaves us with the construction ending in November 2015, right as we're turning the heat on for the second 2 years from now. Elliot, I don't know if you wanted to go into any detail, or if we want to have board members ask specific questions. I'm certainly not the HVAC person. I do attend almost all of the meetings, so I'll turn it over for questions.
Any questions?
I have a couple.
Anybody?
Yeah. I think that because of all of the conversations in board meetings about the heating issues that we had at the middle school, that most of us have some idea of the extent of the work that's required there. But I don't have a good grasp of the work required at North Park in order to alleviate the moisture problem.
Or I don't know. How big?
So essentially what we have in North Park is a predominantly environmentally caused moisture management issue. The North Park Elementary School building, as designed, is negatively pressurized, which means it's going to pull in more air than it exhausts on a daily basis as the system is running with everything on and functioning the way it's supposed to. Essentially, we're going to have a day like we've had in the last couple of days where you're at between 75 and 95% relative humidity. You're going to bring a lot of that moist air into the building. The day in particular that Dr. Rice was referring to, we had excessive moisture for an extended period of time. When we showed up with our portable hydrometers, we were showing readings over 90% relative humidity in the building. The walls and the floors were actually sweating. So after extensive research, bringing in geologists, hydrogeologists, HVAC specialists, the only thing that we could identify as a cause was ambient moisture. And the only way to handle an ambient moisture issue is a system-wide solution. Essentially, what we would be doing is looking at which parts of the central building HVAC system are properly functioning. If you go back 10 years, those boilers were replaced as part of the original ESCO project 10 years ago. The boilers are fine. The infrastructure that delivers the heat that the boilers make to the individual classrooms is original to the building. And so a lot of those components may not be able to be retrofitted to function where we need it to for the unification. And so those in-room pieces and some of the infrastructure delivery pieces would need to be modernized, and the boilers and the core of the system that's relatively new, less than a decade old, would then be adjusted or modified to fit that new design.
Are you talking about the distribution system?
Correct.
Is it an air circulatory system?
Right now, the building utilizes a steam heating system, and there are different options in play, and as the superintendent referred to, we're looking at what our options are, given the debt service, the funding availability, and the timelines that will be needed. But some of the proposals show a conversion of system from a steam to a hot water system with various other components integrated for dehumidification. Others show a building-wide ducted forced air system, which would kind of just reformat how heating and cooling is distributed to the building.
Sorry. It's very sensitive. As part of that, my question is, this is a recent problem, probably a year and a half we've had this problem.
I've only been here a year and a half, so it's new.
Well, I understand that, but how come most of them we have this concern there, and we've been operating in that building for 50 years
Again, I can't speak to
without any change in distribution or anything else? It just boggles me that you're saying it's environmentally ambient. I mean, we've had those kinds of weather conditions over past years, past times. We're not unique this year to that weather pattern. So that being said, I'm just wondering if it's still not an internal water problem that we're not finding.
We went through every major mechanical system. We went through the building envelope. We brought in experts to check everything from the ground to the walls, to the roof, to the drainage, the gray water, the brown water. We checked everything where water and steam can go. The steam tunnels themselves were dry. The slab was dry from underneath. There wasn't a groundwater issue of seepage. I have all the studies in my office, and I'd love to share them with you if you'd like to go through them. The issue, when we got down to the end of the discussion, we're looking at a gradual increase in relative humidity in this region over the last few years. The same as it's more rainy and moist now than it's been in recent years. We've had more snowfall, more rainfall. A lot of this has been contributing from the data side. Again, I haven't been in the district, but people that I've spoken to have been able to speak to the increase in moisture.
Yeah, I do want to reiterate that when this happened, it happened in several school districts that had never had to send kids home because of slippery floor. Every one of us experienced it as a first. It was bizarre.
I understand that about the slippery floors. I mean, it's happened. That isn't the point I was bringing up about over time. One of the problems also here with moisture is the mold or the mildew content that creeps up, and we had that problem. Now, obviously we didn't resolve that problem or find out the reason for that growth. If it's environmental, if it doesn't match the outside ambient spore counts and all that other business,
Correct.
if it's more than that, then there's a problem in the building itself, not outside.
Right. Part of our investigation was looking into the mold situation as the end product of our moisture situation. The floors were only slippery for a couple of days, but the propensity to grow mold exists at any time you have relative humidity over 60%. And managing that relative humidity number became the focus of this project. When we did our mold test, we took air samples, we took physical tape samples. The laboratory did show that the only type of mold that was growing in the building is natural to the area, was not in excess of what was growing outside of the building. The building is located between bodies of water in very moist land. And a lot of what was found in the building was also found outside of the building. Matter of fact, we didn't find anything growing inside that wasn't outside.
Right.
And there were no localized quantities. Sometimes when you have a leak, a steam leak, a water leak, or some sort of physical plant failure, you'll get localized growth. We didn't have that. The growth that we had was sporadic and generally conducive to an ambient situation.
Just to share something, that I was actively involved in the CYO basketball program for well over 10 years. And during that period, almost every year, I worked with my team at North Park. We had 2 seasons separated by about 4 years when we lost a full month of competition at that school simply because the gymnasium floor had bubbled to the point where at the center of the gymnasium floor, the floor itself was 6 inches above the concrete slab that it was laid on. So there were humidity issues, and this, I won't say how many decades ago, but more than a couple of decades ago we're talking about, this situation occurred.
I've been through those similar situations.
And I think the other comment I'd make is that the mold situation, the mold issue, the focus on mold, is relatively new compared to what it was at that time. At that time, with all the moisture, with these issues with the floor, that was something that was never mentioned. It's something that has developed as a concern over the years, and I think the focus is more significant now than it was then. I think my best bet, if we could back up history, we would have had the situations that Elliot is describing now existing then also, without the focus on the mold. But I understand his comments about the change in the weather. I mean, if anybody wants to look anywhere, look at the last 3 weeks. You know, sunshine is a metered event around here anymore.
Yeah, but there's still history of the same thing. What I'm concerned about is putting a new, the way you spell it out, a new dehumidification system in would be like, okay, the problem's there, let's maintain the problem, we can control the problem. And I just want to find out if there's a way to resolve the problem rather than just control the problem.
And looking at a central system is really from the engineering aspect and the architectural aspect, the only way we can manage a system, because we have wet, damp air surrounding this building. And the way the building's designed, we're constantly pulling that wet air into the building. We can't stop the air from coming in because we need certain airflow and turnover for the benefit of the air quality of our occupants. So if we have to bring the air in, the air that we're bringing in has excessive moisture content to it. The only logical solution for us to explore at this juncture is how do we clean, condition, and care for the air that we're bringing in and circulating through the building.
From what I understood and what I remember from that time, it was a cold evening. We woke up in the morning to 90 degrees, 90% humidity. The building had cooled off, the air condensed. There's another situation going on there. I went to North Park when it was new. I've seen things change there. I've seen outside air intakes blocked, and I know a lot of the exhaust fans were either omitted or no longer functioning correctly. I think even with all of those features, as new, we would have still had this problem. It was just incredible humidity that day after a very cold night where it chilled everything in that cement building, and it all just condensed. And unless we get some kind of dehumidification in there, it's going to happen over and over again, I believe.
Just bringing air in and moving air is going to...
It'll help, but we're not doing enough of that, except you can't dehumidify air when you're bringing in 90% humidity.
No, I understand.
Remember, that has the stream in front, and there's, you probably haven't been there, but there's a major swamp in the back.
Well, that swamp's been there a long time, too.
Right.
It's not brand new.
So an oversimplified question. You talk about the building as having been designed for a negative pressure air management system. Is it the case that you cannot change that aspect of the building and turn it into a positive pressure?
You can, but you'll affect the building code requirements for air turnover.
Exactly.
Negative pressure. By saying that it's designed for negative pressure, what that means is based on the cubic volume of air in the building, the size of the fans, and the quantity of the fans is oversized given that volume. Essentially, we can blow more air out than we have to. But as with any other project, including the Haviland project, anytime we do any major HVAC project that affects the space itself, we have to bring everything up to current building codes, and that's going to mean bringing in a certain minimum quantity of outside air.
Which, if I remember right, we don't do now, we can't do now,
Well, our systems perform as originally designed. and
which is
grandfathered.
way shy of today's standards for fresh air.
And if we modify a piece of the system, we have to modify the whole system to meet the
Right.
All right, I'm concerned about how much this might cost. I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I don't agree with Dr. Rychek that it's a given that we wouldn't close North Park Elementary.
Oh, no, I didn't say a given.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I heard, so it's,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And I often get things wrong, but it's okay. So, I mean, if we're talking $1 million or $1.5 million to redo and maybe more to do a system, I'd want a capacity study done first. I can think of other scenarios that might, well, at least one I can think of that would close North Park. Not that I'm not advocating that close, but I can think of other scenarios where that might be a something that might happen. So I'd be reluctant to spend a lot of money on a building that could close. So I really need to know what the number is and whether or not we ought to do a capacity study before we make a decision. I don't know how we do that in 2 weeks.
Right. I just want to clarify that what I said is a given is that you would have to make it a given. If you wanted to, if you did this, you would have to make it a given. We wouldn't want to spend money. And again, I'm leaning more in the direction of before we spend money on any elementary school, we need to give ourselves the time to do the enrollment study, and that's not going to happen. One of the reasons why we looked at there were a couple of reasons why we looked at North Park. One, because we're talking about HVAC, and there is an issue there. So we threw that into the mix with no commitment, just wanted to make sure we threw it into the mix. And again, our policy says for me to give an annual enrollment report. I'll be doing that at the reorg. We know what our last enrollment report last year said, and it's that we're close. And it may be, and this is, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the whole HVAC. But with that said, we could certainly do the Haviland as a standalone and leave whatever repairs there are at North Park for our next facility upgrade, and certainly wait till the capacity study. One of the lenses we looked at were buildings that we potentially had to close or send students home based on weather conditions, and making sure that we discuss that. But I think at the next board meeting, we'll have some more information, but I think it's critical to make the determination in 2 weeks whether we throw North Park in the mix or not. And I think, one of the things that's tricky is, how do we say to the public we want to spend money on an elementary school when we know we're looking, if the trend continues, we're looking at over the next, 3 years or so, of closing another school. So I don't want to take North Park out of the mix of, everything's fair game. You look at it again. But we wanted to look at all the HVAC projects.
Is there something that can be done in the short term to address that without planning the kind of, sending kids home early in the event of high humidity? Yes.
We're already managing it, and we're doing pretty well. I've been checking, I've personally checked it 3 times this week with a portable hygrometer, just a unit, a tool to measure humidity. Our energy specialist has deployed a dozen data loggers throughout the building to track over week to see what our numbers are. In utilizing the humidifiers that we purchased last year, we've been able to keep the relative humidity in the building under the 60% threshold at every point that we tested it in the facility. So again, sometimes it feels humid, sometimes your nose may make you think that things are getting a little wacky because humidity has a smell to it, obviously, and there's some areas where you're going to feel damp moisture, but we're actually testing it using data to drive our process to relocate equipment as needed, and we are successfully managing the situation right now.
Well, that seems to say that if we're managing it now, we could manage it indefinitely in this way.
The issue is what we're doing now is functional, but it's not an exact science. A centralized system would be a safer long-term solution as it's less intrusive to the flow of students. There's not devices sitting in hallways and public spaces. And a lot of what we do now tends to be a bit reactive because we're taking measures throughout the day over day. A centralized system would react instantly to spikes in humidity, as Mr. Watson referred to earlier. That night where we had a temperature delta of about 35 degrees from night to day and a humidity spike of about 30%. We can't react that quickly with the current portable devices that we're using. And I think part of exploring this project would be to hedge that bet and mitigate that fear going forward.
I think I heard more than you just said, so let me tell you what I heard. One thing I heard is that our current approach is much more labor intensive than a centralized system would be. And there's also situations that we currently can't identify that could lead to moisture and puddles. And you know, by nature, they are currently unidentified. We haven't experienced them yet, so we can't predict whether it's going to happen. Those situations would be addressed by a central system. The other thing that I think I heard was that while we can continue this indefinitely, and while we also accept that there's probably conditions beyond our control, what this is costing us now is a fraction of what it would cost us to install a central system.
Right, so I think we're at the point where we have to get the design and some concepts and with a price tag on it, and then take a real look at it.
Yep.
As well as Haviland, I'd like to point out that I think we need more than one concept. We need at least one other alternate as far as equipment. We had discussed it in a couple of our reviews of the building, you know, rather than going with the current heating units or go independent classroom units. So we need to have all that in there for us to look at it.
That is definitely part of the consideration of Haviland. And if I can kind of synopsize where we are versus where we'd like to go, a lot of the repair work and the funds that the board's made available to me and my department has been to rehabilitate original equipment. And essentially what the capital project will do is look to modernize where necessary to not only increase efficiency, but increase function, most importantly. So that's a huge part of what we're looking to scope out and present to the next board meeting if we have everything together and ready to do so.
Okay.
I just have a couple thoughts I want to jump in on. In looking at North Park, and it's a question that I don't necessarily want to have, you know, doesn't need to be answered right now, or maybe it can't be answered if, you know, we're talking about whether or not we would spend capital money to put a system in the building. Even if we were to make a decision not to continue to occupy the building because of our enrollment decline, are we thinking that we're going to get rid of the building? I mean, I think I think for the most part, I think we're saying we're holding on to, I mean, you know, I don't think we're looking at liquidating anything, so we still have to maintain buildings. So the question is, would the building be any easier to maintain empty than it is occupied? And I don't believe that it is. I think, you know, it's still going to be an issue, particularly with the environment, the ambient environment around the building. It's always going to be a wet area, and it's always going to be an issue. And you could close the building up, turn everything off, and come back in a year, and the mold would you wouldn't want to walk in the building. So the investment, and we made an investment in Hyde Park Elementary of new boilers, knowing that we were, you know, I believe the decision, you know, we continued to do that investment even though we knew we were going to be vacating the building. So I'm not sure it's quite a clear line of thinking that we wouldn't do the improvements. So that, and I think that, you know, there's a lot to be done at North Park as far as, you know, understanding what the issue is. Jumping over to Haviland, I know that, and we had a conversation at the energy meeting today. We kind of wandered off energy and into facilities a little bit. And I wanted to express a concern to make sure that you have the resources necessary. I mean, we're coming into the summer season when you have the opportunity to do a lot of maintenance on your equipment. And I know that you're focusing on Haviland. And I just want to make sure that you've got the resources necessary to do the maintenance and the repairs. I mean, as I walk around this school district and look at the number of fresh air intakes that are closed off and univents that aren't operating properly. I mean, you've got more than you can do this summer, but the last thing I want to think that we don't get something done is because you don't have the dollars necessary to whatever it might be. Put in new, the thermostats you need, put in the damper actuators that you need, put in control valves, whatever it needs. I think we've got to make sure district-wide, that we're making sure that we are funding what's necessary to do all of this overdue maintenance on our buildings. And I don't know who's got to hear that, but I just hope that there's not a restriction. And I don't know that you've got enough manpower to do all that you can identify, and maybe it's looking for some good subcontract labor to get it done. But I think that, we're remiss if we don't respond to those things that we know that are existing out there, and we're just asking for more problems.
I do appreciate that. And just as a point of reference, my staff, my HVAC staff, my plumbers, anybody that's pretty much loose body that I can pull, is currently doing the triage of all ventilation management systems in district. So we're going to compile all that into a priority summary list. As we go into the summer months, we're using the next 2 weeks to really investigate and prioritize these projects. We're not coming at this in January or December saying, oh my God, something's broken, we can't fix it. We're looking at it right now. We're going to prioritize bulk water supplies, and if I do need additional resources, I will be coming to the administration of the board to share that with you. But we're doing our homework right now to get ahead of that as much as we can.
And the last thing that I'll mention is in reference to the proposed capital project timetable. I think it's tight. I mean, the SED review phase, December through April, I don't think that's enough time. I think their backlog is still 26 weeks. I've just...
Yeah, we talked, there are some tactics you can use to personally go up to SED, and in the meeting with Tetra Tech, we talked about employing every tactic we had, and also doing whatever we could to justify that it's an emergency repair based on scheduling school closures. So we were going to pull out all guns and go to Albany firing, literally.
And just to Gary's point, just a few minutes ago, we're looking at modernizing the system, which will allow us to build one system alongside the other and change over during the heating season. So should we experience delays, that's kind of part of the planning process has been, okay, if we experience delays and we do decide that we're going to transition from a hot air to a hot water system, the hot water system can be laid out alongside and parallel the hot air system with sequential changeovers throughout the building as areas become completed. So it's definitely part of the process because we're already looking at completion date of November, and we typically turn our heating plants on October 15th.
I haven't said anything yet, so a couple of things. Just to Dr. Reichik's point on year-round school. I mean, it's something I have seen coming. I mean, yes, we do operate year-round school, and eventually down the road it's probably a greater possibility for a greater number of kids. So I've always kind of advocated for when the money was being able to found, it was probably time to start air conditioning school buildings. We got to get out of the 1930s or 50s mentalities of you don't need air conditioning in the Hudson Valley. I think any of us that work professionally in an office, we do not go through the summer not in air conditioning. And there's from like late April till the end of school can get very uncomfortable in these buildings, and the first month of school isn't so great either. You can get really warm weather, and it's not conducive to learning. Never mind, we don't stick the kids in the school in the middle of winter without heat. I don't know why we do it in the hot weather without air conditioning. So whatever I presume that a dehumidification system kind of meant air conditioning, because that's essentially what you're doing. That's how you dehumidify air. That's what air conditioning does. And then the final point too is, not that we're anywhere near a decision on a closing of a school, but you'll never get me to vote to close North Park when it's the youngest building, and really other than that particular issue, is really the best physical plant as far as classroom space, sizes, layout, almost fully accessible to the disabled because it's all one level. There's a whole lot of reasons why that building's really in the best shape of any of them, and it's not for the lack of the fact that it's younger by 7 years than the next youngest building, so I would never advocate closing the newest building. I think that's a foolish decision myself. We learned a lot over the elementary schools we built from Hyde Park and Violet Avenue in 1939 up through North Park in 1967. We learned a lot about what we want in a community, as a community in schools, and, North Park kind of bore the fruit of what we learned along the way from Ralph Smith to here, and finally to North Park as the last building built. So that's my comment.
Kevin, I think that you made a lot of good points there. The only thing that I would prefer to do is to limit conversation about which building we could possibly consider closing until we're actually talking about closing a building. I think that conversation is going to be tough enough without.
Oh, I agree, but
putting marks in the sand already.
It's just about a physical building. I'm not talking about a location certainly does add into it, but a school really is the people that are in it. It's in the students and the faculty and the staff. It's not the building, but just from a building perspective, I would never agree to close the newest one. You'll never convince me.
I understand, but my point is that every building has its strengths, and unless we're going to talk about every building and all of their strengths and weaknesses at the same time, I don't think that it's constructive to point to one and say, this is great, and I would never consider it.
That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. That's not my opinion.
Well, having been through the conversation prior to this, I'm simply saying that I would prefer not to talk about it at all until we're ready to talk about it in full.
Agreed, but I didn't bring it up, nor did I counterpoint it when it was brought up, so.
Okay, I think we can move on. Yeah? Okay, thank you, Elliot. That was the lively discussion. That's good. Discussion is good. We may I now have a motion to enter public participation, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. We're now open for public participation. Anybody who wishes to address the board, please step up to the mic. Any takers?
Son who's a junior, Andrew Darling, at Deer High School. And this may not be the proper forum to be at to ask this question, but I'd like to ask, how can I facilitate getting a course, some of the courses for juniors and seniors, like business law and AP computer science, are added in or taken away from year to year. So how can I facilitate getting advanced placement computer science added back in for next year? I personally know of around 13 students that are interested in taking it. My son has taken the two basic programming courses with Ms. Schimmelpenning this year. Loved them. She's great at it. But the problem is, they're great courses, but it's just a little too basic for a child to really, truly evaluate, does he want to follow this path in college? And there are so many majors out there that, from the information technology to the management information systems, and even the business courses get heavily into computer science now. So there are a lot. I took a look, and around a third of the top 10 majors are heavily related to computer science. And part of the problem is I think the courses are a little bit great, but they're too basic for a child to really understand whether this is something they're interested in pursuing. And secondly, the good schools that have good technology programs don't view these courses as serious enough to help the student get in, and feel that it's demonstrated any kind of aptitude in that area. So what do? Where do I take it from here? How can I try to facilitate making that course available?
Okay, thank you. The way public participation works is you ask a question, and you sit down, and we ask anybody else to ask a question, then we close participation, and then we answer. It's not a conversation, it's kind of you ask us, and we get to say something, okay? Not ideal, but that's the way it works. Would anybody else like to address the board? You got bullied by a bunch of women.
No, they told me we were all going together, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Don't look behind it.
Okay,
Oh,
Zach,
now
come
it's
on, come on.
Tomorrow's my last day of high school, very tired. We're speaking.
Yeah, it's
We're
barely on.
speaking from the Latin class at FDR. We heard actually just this morning that it might be getting cut next year. So we would just like to say, I'm a big fan of that. Just a couple things that ran through my head when it was said that it's not just a class about a dead language, as all of my friends say when I tell them when I do third period every day. It's more than that. We've learned so much about the Romans, ancient cultures, and just everyday things too. We've learned derivatives from Latin words, which has helped all of our vocabularies. It helped me in the SATs. I've learned so many new words that I've used. I'm trying to use them in this speech, but I'm just making this up as I go. But it's been an enormously helpful class. It's been so interesting. And it's sad to see another humanities course get cut from Roosevelt between the possible cancellation you all talked earlier about English 11 that might have been cut or joined with another English class. The humanities are an important part, and I'm not just saying that because I want to be a humanities major, but they're not represented as much in Roosevelt, and it's sad to see that they're getting cut. I know it's hard times, but they're helpful for the generations to come, the young thinkers. Anything else?
Like he said, it's not just a dead language. It helps with other things. It helped me with the PSATs. All of my averages have gone up since taking Latin, English, Spanish even, American history, which it definitely helped a lot for me. I understand English so much better now, and it's not just learning, it's fun too, and it's fun to get involved in things like that and know where so many of your traditions come from. So many traditions from Christmas, which come from Saturnalia, which we had a lot of fun planning that. And it's fun to get involved in things like that and not just be sitting down and staring at a board all day, which we do some of that too, it seems. I'm going to be honest, of course. But we learn in other activities, like things like having a holiday like that and singing Jingle Bells in Latin. And it's interesting and fun, and to see it cut would actually really, really disappoint me.
Yeah, we have like a phenomenal teacher, so it's amazing to have her, and she's just so amazing. And like they said, it really helps in all different kinds of subjects. Like I remember in global class, I'll just hear something from Latin, I'll be like, oh, I know that already because it's from Latin. And like when I do like practice PSATs, I see derivatives come up all the time, and I'm like, oh, I know that, okay. So it really helps a lot. And it'd be sad to see it cut.
All right. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Would anybody else like to address the board? Nancy?
And before you can start the timer, I sent out an invitation, but I got some of it back by email today. I guess I didn't send it properly, but Catherine Pitcher's self-contained class or communication disorders class, the little ones, are having a presentation tomorrow, performance of Frozen. If you don't have it in your hand and you're not sick of it yet, if anybody can make it at 10 o'clock, I know it's short notice, but my invitations came back. My name is Nancy Molson. I live at 19 Valley View Road in Hyde Park. I'm also a speech and language pathologist here at Netherwood Elementary School. And I wanted to speak to you tonight about district policy regarding a teacher's personal instructional materials and summer. So here's 3 points of background that I think you need to know. 1, many elementary school teachers, particularly in the younger grades, purchase a large percentage of their teaching materials and supplies themselves. 2, summer school must, of necessity, utilize our school buildings during the summer. However, the last time summer school was at Netherwood, a number of us returned from vacation to find both personal and district-owned teaching materials gone or damaged. And 3, summer school classes are returning to Netherwood this year. Now, in light of this background, many of us would like to secure our personal teaching materials over the summer by locking our teacher closets. It's not that we don't trust our colleagues, it's just that people often don't treat objects they don't own with the same care that owners do. However, we've been told by our administrator that this is not permitted because it is, in the words of the administration, unwelcoming. When I appealed this matter to the Assistant Superintendent's office, I was told that it was district policy that materials that belong to individual teachers have to be taken home during the summer. I'd like to give you an idea of what this would entail. With regard only to teaching materials and supplies, not assessments, this is a photograph of items I've purchased myself to use with your students. This is very low tech, so excuse me. All right. There's story retelling kits, and there's stickers up in here, and there's articulation cards, and bookshelves I bought myself too. So that's one. In this picture, I've got the dramatic play area with all of the supplies for that. Here's another aspect of the dramatic play area with the puppets that I bought, and all of the pocket charts I bought, and 10 play supplies. Oh, here's my teacher closet. This is the thing I'd like to lock. All of those games are mine. Here are my bookshelves. All of those books are my own, and including all the craft supplies that are down there. In another part of the room, here are some of the games that I have. One of it's coming out here or no. Some more teacher texts and materials that I have, and then this is the low tech. These are binders. It took me about 5 summers to compile and organize all of the instructional materials in there, and there's some additional texts up there that I purchased. Now, every single instructional item you've seen in these photographs is mine and would have to be boxed up and removed. To be fair, I gathered together all the materials and supplies purchased by the Hyde Park Central School District for my use, the books and the games and the instructional texts. And here they are. That's it. Now remember, I'm not asking for reimbursement for any of the purchases I've made, and neither are the other teachers. And I'm not speaking only on behalf of myself. You should know that I'm not an exception with regard to the sheer quantity of items purchased to teach your students. Rather, I'm the rule. And my inventory is edited to fit into my relatively small space. Many teachers have much, much more. One teacher reminded me today that when she packed up her room one summer so that maintenance could be done there, she ended up with 66 boxes that she had to lug home. This district's children have benefited over the years from our large expenditures of personal funds. Not only have those expenditures never been acknowledged or appreciated, it now seems that we're being penalized for having made them. I could find no board policy that prohibits teachers from keeping personal items in school over the summer or from securing them. And I fully understand the district isn't responsible for any loss of personal objects. I get that. Given the large inventories of personal materials many of us have accumulated, it would be a considerable burden to have to box them up and take them home, requiring further personal time and funds. And I say funds because we've asked for boxes from the district, but the district has provided only 20 cardboard boxes for the entire school, so I'm guessing we're going to have to find our own packing material. And this is what I'm requesting. I believe it is reasonable to ask the board to permit us to keep our personal items at school this summer, secured in a manner that poses no threat to either the welcoming appearance or ease of use of the classrooms. The teachers have demonstrated their commitment to their profession and their respect for the district's children through their use of extensive personal funds to teach those children. And now I am asking that you show us some respect by allowing common sense and civility to prevail in this matter. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board? May I have a motion to close public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. I guess the course one, unless you want to handle the...
I can speak a little bit because I wanted to clarify a few things. And First of all, I want to thank the people who advocate for advanced placement courses or any courses, and especially the students. To be sitting in an educational environment and have students requesting Latin is nothing short of heartwarming. So thank you. That's a wonderful dilemma to have. And Gina Calenti, you know, is a phenomenal teacher, and Latin, to be able to teach Latin and have students come and enthusiastically beg for more is a tribute to your teaching. And I feel strongly that, you know, Latin is an important course as well. Some of the determinations we make are that some of our courses based on number of students are offered every other year. So I'm not sure what the status is right now for the Latin class. Cora is not here, so I will not answer definitively this evening, but the same thing is true with advanced placement computer science. And I think I heard you say your son was a junior. And we do face this from time to time, that some courses are offered every other year, just sheerly based on numbers of students, and that would go for any course, and we're not, it's not a different practice from other districts. So I understand that some of the courses, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's difficult to offer classes when we have 10 students enrolled. It's just fiscally very difficult. But with that said, you can look at our rosters, and there are plenty of times we open up a course with 15 students and wind up with 10 now and then, but we do have to have some guidelines for enrollment. As I don't have the enrollment numbers with me, and I know I had a conversation with Jen Kreiser this morning, and it sounded as if the Latin numbers were up. So I think there are conversations happening. We will need to get back to you, but what you've done this evening is very important by indicating to us what's important to students and what's important to your children, and we will take all of that into consideration as we look at what we're offering next year. Part of the other problem is that we don't ever want, and we didn't cut the American Studies and English 11 honors. I wanted to clarify that. And I also wanted to clarify, because we have a listening audience, we are not cutting Latin, and we are not cutting AP Computer Science. It's a matter of, do we offer it every year, or do we offer it every other year? So just to clarify. So we will look at the numbers, we will talk to the instructional staff, and certainly they will communicate with the teaching staff. We wish we could offer every single course that every student is interested in, but sometimes we have to make hard decisions. But we will go back and look at this and look at the numbers. And I did get the heads up today about the Latin class. I think, are there 27? 27 students who signed up. So we will definitely need to get back to you on that, because 27 students who, again, these are wonderful problems to have. And we will definitely look into it and get back to you.
For the AP Computer Science, if she wants to contact anybody, that would be Cora?
Yes.
So Cora Stemple would be she'll be on the website. You can see her.
229-4008. And,
okay, well, can I make a comment first?
Sure.
On Nancy? You sure you're not in the visual arts department? And you must have a nice full format printer. I love those pictures. They're really good. My only question is, given the amount, how would you secure that other than locking the door?
Well, the games are the things I think I worry about, and I have some clinical things I use for manipulating parts of the oral musculature, for instance.
Right.
And some of those are $150 out of my pocket, and they could easily be locked inside of the teacher cupboard. The other things, in the past, we've left our things there, either boxed, or if we cover it with paper, if we make it difficult enough to access, people don't tend to bother.
Okay, I didn't want to make this a conversation, but I wanted to give you a small opportunity, since public participation and me get get a little weird sometimes, one of the things, but now we'll let, do you have any comment on
Yeah,
that?
well, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that we truly do recognize how much people pay out of their own personal pockets in their classrooms. It gives me reason to, I don't know if there are ways to do it publicly, but that is the norm in our district, and we truly appreciate it, and we know our students appreciate it. And so thank you, because if it weren't for a lot of the out-of-pocket expenses that teachers give, some of the more enriching things that happen would not take place. So thank you. And I also, again, because I just want to clarify for the audience that we do not hire teachers outside of the district. So while I'm not making a comment or saying what any decisions are at this point, but I do need the listening audience to know that we don't open up our school to strangers. Many of the teachers who come in to teach summer school in this building work in this building, and then we pull from all of the other buildings. It is a rare exception that we hire a teacher from outside our school district, so I didn't want someone to have the impression that we have these strangers coming in and stealing. I know that we have had summer school. It's been a number of years since we've had it here, probably, 3 or 4? We try to rotate it, but in the last few years, we have had no incident, none that have been brought to my attention where we've had teachers within our district stealing from other teachers within our district. So I just needed to put that out there. I do appreciate that if you spend a lot of money, if something gets damaged or broken, or if somebody does take something, that is not very damaging and certainly is an expense to you, but I wouldn't want any of our listening audience to think that we put our employees at high risk for leaving things here. So we will look into the matter and definitely get back to you.
At the risk of opening up a can of worms and watching Elliot have a fit over there when I suggest this, but just a comment. So, obviously it's very much appreciated that, faculty members, especially probably, I shouldn't say that, but probably mostly at the elementary and maybe at the middle school level, maybe even the high school level, have tons of personal materials that, are purchased for them, by themselves and brought in. To me, it seems, I don't know, how do I put this delicately? It seems ridiculous to me that, a teacher has 66 boxes worth of stuff and is told that, hey, since we're working on your room this summer, you got to get it home. I mean, we got box trucks and maintenance workers, load up the boxes and drop it off at their house, or provide another place for it to be stored safely. Just in that scenario. I don't even know if it happened that often, like where, okay, you got to empty the classroom because we're going to do some work in it for the summer. But to me, it just seems like, if somebody's expended their own personal funds to enrich the instruction program, the least we can do is provide a box truck and the maintenance guys to haul the stuff to, whether it's their home or to another safe location while that work goes on. I can't imagine taking 66 boxes out of any building and dropping them in my car and hauling them home and then bringing them back. It just seems like a lot of effort to ask somebody to do that's already made the contribution of providing this material for us, saving us money and enriching our program. That's all. It's just a thought. Because it doesn't happen in every classroom every summer, so it's not like, we got to have allied, moving vans emptying out the schools every summer. But to me, that doesn't seem like an unreasonable thing to do to help folks out that have made that big stretch.
Right.
You got 3 boxes. I'm sorry. Could you take those home yourself? But 66 boxes, I think we could move them for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if 66 boxes was because summer school was coming in, or they moved
No, it
out
sounded
of
like
the
it was a
building
maintenance.
entirely.
It sounded like it was a maintenance problem.
Yeah.
That they were, hey, we're going to do work.
Right,
so we gotta
which means
empty
you
out.
had to
Right.
clean the room out
Right.
entirely.
Right, yeah.
So I don't think we're talking about 66 boxes, but we are talking when we come in for summer school, we pretty much utilize every classroom. So.
No, but I just meant in that scenario.
Oh,
if
yeah.
maintenance comes in and says, you got to get out, you got to vacate the room for the summer, everything's got to go.
Yeah.
I think we owe them the courtesy of hauling the stuff home for them and bringing it back at the end of the summer.
Oh, I see. I
You know,
see.
a
Yeah.
teacher moving 66 boxes, that's kind of silly. like I said, you got 3 boxes, all right, I think you can do that yourself, but 66 boxes, let's load up the box truck and drop them off at the house, you know, and pick them up at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
It's the least we can do.
Yep.
Or put them someplace else, but just, you know, if they gotta be moved, we should be moving it for them, they shouldn't have to do that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Just one comment for Gina. I went to high school back in 1955, and the only teacher I remember in the 4 years I spent at Manhattan Prep is Mr. Doyle, who was my Latin teacher, and also a very accomplished organ player. So as much as it was a dead language then, it still lives with me.
Get in? We move on? Okay.
Good problems to have.
Yes. So this is the, we're reviewing the Board of Education meetings for 14-15 schedule. Has anybody got any problems with that? You'll notice that there are some optional meetings. I believe in.
I like moving the
Actually-
meeting of the BOCES meeting, that's a good idea. So that we meet at the same day as the BOCES vote, and move it, that's a good idea, I like that.
Yeah, I
It's
thought
just
that was a
silly
good idea,
meeting
too.
twice that week and, you know, trying to squeeze that in, and
Yep.
I like that
Yeah.
idea.
The other question, one question I had was the Meet the Candidates Night. Is that a Board of Ed function, or is that
No.
a PTS?
It's, in the past, it's been a function of another group.
Okay.
Well, it's
whether it be the
because it's also
PTA,
the budget hearing is that night,
The
that's really
public
why it's
hearing.
on there.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
it's
but-
locked in by law when the budget hearing has to be.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's
not our
based on
function,
a
though.
budget hearing
Right,
night. It has
right.
nothing to do, it may just, they
Correct.
piggyback with us
Correct.
on that particular night. Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
And they could have it on another night. I mean, we could, you know,
No,
We-
it's better, it's better.
it's better, yeah, but, yeah, okay, leave it, but,
And I didn't open it back up, but my notes, are we doing the budget hearing night and just doing a full meeting that night, rather than having a separate meeting just for it? Okay. And my other any comment is, any third Thursday meetings, I probably won't be here, but there are only a couple that were proposed.
Okay.
I have another obligation.
There's none.
Any other problems, Steve?
Yeah, Glenn won't be
Yeah.
there.
Wanted to mention that I see locations assigned to a number of these meetings and others that do not have locations assigned. One change that we made for the meeting schedule this year was that they were all held at the administration office until the end of the year, when we've held the board meeting roadshow.
Yeah, I personally would like to see the visits to school moved earlier in the year, school year. At this time of year, there's a lot going on in the school, and it's a little harder for the principals and whatnot to put the programs together for our meeting. So
Actually, I thought that's one of the discussions we had, is we were going to try to get some feedback from the administrators.
the building principals are overwhelmingly said, do not do this again.
Do not do.
Do not have them at the end of the year again. Poor Melissa is going on the last day of school.
Oh, yeah.
It's just,
Okay.
even for Rick, overwhelmingly, they all said it was nice to try it, but let's not do this at the end of the school year again. It's just, they requested that we do not do this at the end of the year.
I think,
just-
you know what, to be
enough
honest
said.
with you, I'd rather sprinkle them throughout like we've done before, because bringing up the air conditioning discussion again, this time of year, it's nice to be back in the administrative building where, you know, because I'm about ready to shed this jacket here,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I was thinking October, November.
Yeah,
was
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, not every, not like in a row, maybe like every other one, like we used to
Right, but
do.
you could-
One
yeah.
admin, one school building, you know, through those months, and then, you know, through the
Well,
winter period.
Yeah, whatever works out. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
could
But then
be
once,
2 in a row.
once you get into the spring, let's get the heck out of their way. They got a lot of work to do, and plus we get to get back in air conditioning, so.
Okay.
not the worst thing in
So
the
we're
world.
not voting to approve this, are we? We're just discussing it. Yeah. Is there any,
I just wanted to comment that I prefer to group all of the roadshow meetings together. So
okay.
I would prefer like January, February, March, for example.
That's okay too. It's just whatever, the middle of the year is okay.
Yeah.
You know.
And it seems like a reasonable compromise to visit the buildings. That seems to be a strongly favored option by the administration, but for me personally, I don't like bringing them through the year.
I was only in favor of October, November to kind of beat the budget season so that it wouldn't be longer meetings, but, whatever, we have time to decide.
Yeah.
Based on this year, though, I didn't really find the budget season really wasn't that unpleasant this year.
This year.
I have to
No,
admit
yeah, I know.
The budget process was very well run
I know.
this year.
Yeah, really, but no,
true.
I mean, not huge crowds, and the meetings didn't drag on. It really wasn't, I thought, it was very painless, I thought.
This year, I agree.
Yeah, I know, it was this year. I know
Yeah.
next year will be
I
something
think
different.
this was the
but we did.
exception.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's setting a pattern, but we can't count on that.
Right.
Okay, well, once we get to the consent agenda, I actually have a couple of comments on that, so. Okay, moving on. Oh, yeah, we discussed naming of the athletic facility. I'm not sure exactly if we've come to a conclusion or.
I don't think we really did, or there'd be a resolution, but I guess let's just start off by saying that, and obviously we don't have to decide anything tonight, but I had brought this up once before, and, the board has the right and board's responsibility to, well, I mean, you can always get input, but I mean, ultimately, the board is the only one that can name an athletic, any facility, building, school building, whatever. But I was really taken by the cleverness of, and I want to say it was Brian Halling that came up with it, and I hope I'm right. Nobody, I haven't heard anything to the contrary. That the cleverness of the Oval Office for the stadium at the high school, and I just thought that was really cool. And I didn't want to see that slip away. I mean, there's nothing wrong with calling it that, and there's nothing wrong with using it, but I just felt like, well, the board's ultimately responsible for naming things, and I thought that if everybody agreed that was a nice or a neat idea to officially kind of hang the tag on it, so to speak, and say that's the name of it, and it will forever be more known as that until another board down the road changes their mind. But rather than have it be this kind of informal wink and a nod, it is incredibly clever to me, I thought. And so I just thought it was a really kind of a neat name, and it would be a nice tradition to kind of start, so.
I would second that. That's where the presidents do their best work.
Right. It was just, I don't know, that's just what I thought about it. And it doesn't need to be decided tonight, but if we want to seek input, or it doesn't need to be decided next meeting either. But I just didn't want it to slip away and be forgotten about, and everybody refers it to that because, oh, it's cute and it's clever, but we never hung the name on it, you know what I mean? And then it just kind of, I just think, we did, whatever. I don't know what anybody else thinks, so.
I think it's perfect.
I totally agree with you.
Just to throw another item in that same category, there has been some conversations going on since Dwayne Davis's passing, who was a very esteemed coach and member of this community for a long time, that some people have started to inquire about the possibility of naming the floor in the gymnasium after him.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Larry Lewis Gymnasium, which I bet a lot of people don't know that.
Right. So Larry,
Right.
which is now on, if you're in the
Right. There's a
gymnasium, you
plaque.
see that, the plaque
Right.
there, but they also will inquire
Yeah,
about
I think that would be a cool idea,
naming
too.
the floor after
Right,
Dwayne
right.
Davis.
Right. So, but, and again, that would have to be our decision.
Yeah.
I certainly don't disagree with it, but, yeah, so that's just a thought. I don't know what other people think, or it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but I just didn't want to let the moment pass. And it was kind of also to acknowledge, certainly the work that everybody did to see that thing to fruition, from the idea to, the community support for it, to, keep Hyde Park on track, just the whole process and how we came together and, had a great homecoming, and, and like I said, the track meets that were held this spring, I just don't want to lose the kind of the momentum of the good feeling of it.
I'm not sure it's essential that we do it really soon, and.
No, right.
And there's a big sign there that says the Oval Office. We're not going to forget the name.
No, I know, but.
I would like to hear, like, some public input, just on the off chance that there is something better. And not that, I agree, it's a wonderful name, but I think we have time to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, but just let's not forget it, though.
Yes.
Even if it's
Okay.
done coincident with the anniversary on homecoming of the 1 year and the thing, whatever. I just, let's not forget it, and let's not just have it be this informal banner that, 5 years from now becomes dry and weather rotted and falls off the fence, and then everybody kind of forgets about it, because everybody involved kind of has moved on,
I think we can handle that.
So,
thank you. We now have a motion for the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I actually have some discussion, and Wayne's not here. I'm a little concerned, in the consent agenda and also outside it, there are budget transfers. And I'm concerned that we either underestimated something or overestimated something else, but to be able to pull the kind of dollars that those items consist of, seems to me that we're, take fuel. Okay, we had an unusual cold winter, but that's a lot of extra money. I mean, are we planning our budget so we make it as low as we possibly can and then hoping nothing goes wrong? Or should we be planning more for some kind of contingencies that happen? So it was just a thought. I mean, there's 2 budget transfers for fuel alone, and they're big. So,
well, it kind of begs the question of why, how were we able to take the money out of these other areas?
Well, in this case, it was because of the DHEC holiday.
Right. Right. But you also had some
are
coming out
we
of $55,000
are we going to rely on that every year?
salaries.
Yes. And
yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So, just based on that, I would like us to look more closely at our budget process on how we estimate things, and not get into this kind of continually moving money around and being hopeful that we can do it without.
But I'm also concerned that it's not just fuel oil. You got a considerable amount of overtime that we're trying to cover.
And that overtime too, yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And where'd that come from? So.
I do have some questions.
Especially if it was based on the overtime from former years, based on the amount that they project is based on what we had years past, and maybe we should have that in the budget to begin with. So,
I've got some questions when we come to new business on the transfers. When we get to the new business part on the transfer, that's when I've got a couple comments.
Okay.
When we get there.
You mean the one after it?
Yes.
After outside? Yes. Okay.
The only other question, and since Wayne's not here, I'm not sure how we get it answered. I know it seems to point that the oil increases, but we did switch over from oil to gas in some of the buildings, and I remember several articles in the paper over a period of time indicating that at one point in the middle of the heating season, the price of natural gas in this area jumped by 100% for a period of time. And I don't, there's no way to differentiate which of that,
Actually, there is, because the way we budget, we actually have a natural gas budget line.
2 separate codes.
They're fuel oil and natural gas. So if it's
So
all
none
for
of this
fuel
money is
oil,
being, none of this money is being
Fuel
transferred
oil.
for the natural
nope,
gas.
it's all for fuel oil.
The only, what piqued my interest in when I saw that was that there's been a couple of legislators that have commented and are looking for an investigation as to whether or not there was a group that took advantage of the situation to artificially inflate the natural gas at the penalty of a lot of people.
Okay.
So I'll put on the next agenda, I'll actually have Wayne discuss some of these transfers, and I think the other thing is that now would be the time to look at it because, you know, we have our budget approved. So if nothing changes, all those codes are populated, and are they populated correctly? And how do we remedy that? Because if yeah.
We pray for warm weather.
We hope for another
you know,
holiday.
I think one thing that's important is to realize that a budget is a budget. It's, you know, it's a dynamic document. It lives.
Absolutely.
Things.
Estimate.
Yeah, it's an estimate of what you expect things to happen. And I know that most of the people that I know in the facilities world look at their budget and they operate very conservatively, particularly in the fall and then through the winter, because they're big items. You know, you're looking at fuel oil, energy costs.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get through the heavy winter, you look at what money you've got left at that point to try to get other things done. So it's all a matter of prioritizing. So, you know, I think that, you know, I'm glad we've got the money to do it, you know, to be able to pay the oil bill, but I don't think I don't feel so much like this was just extra money sitting somewhere that was going to, you know, otherwise.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. We were lucky that we had the extra money.
My bigger concern is what aren't we getting done because we had to spend money on oil? Yeah. That's my bigger concern at this point, is what is it?
Oh, I think the point was that when we got the DHIC holiday, it's a considerable amount of money. It's well over the amount of fuel oil. Well, double. So, but
is that what the code, the 90,
but like, for instance,
803?
we're not expecting to get one this coming year.
Yep.
They've already said, last time I talked to Wayne anyway. So I'm concerned that we come up with the same kind of a problem and don't have those funds, and then where does that leave us?
The auditors have already told us that we can't put more money in the budget.
Right.
And I believe the taxpayers have as well.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. You get down to...
I'll move special ed placements.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
A quick discussion. We were presented with 107 meetings for approval, and I reviewed them all and recommend that we adopt the package as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for the budget transfers, 10.2.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Gary?
Yes, I think Elliot could help us out here a little bit. I'm sure it might be better if Wayne's here, but Elliot? I'm looking at a couple of the spreadsheets that you gave to the board, actually to Wayne, and passed on to us. The year-to-year comparison of consumption and cost. It's in the difference in this year compared to the last 2 years is extreme, and we understand weather and patterns and problems, heating problems. But the price for fuel was similar. It was close. What we pay for fuel, within a couple cents within 3 years. So that wasn't a big part of the issue of the extra money. The other part of this is with Synergistic. This is the first year we're paying a fee for them, right? Synergistic. This is the first year we have them on board, and this is their first fee that we pay them. So that savings that you guys figured out for us, the 115 or 120, whatever it may be, just counteracts that, and one for one. Well, you mentioned that you saved in a certain up to March, you saved up to $115,000, and what you have on your program fees here is $126,000.
That's right, and that's as of March. Our year-end number is projecting to exceed the program cost amount. And the difference in what we're requesting for fund transfer is in addition to that cost savings.
So what I'm seeing on your reports here is the cost saving isn't as much as the fee.
Well, the cost savings number is as of March. By the end of the year, our numbers already.
Yeah, but
We're looking at June, so we're examining May's bills, for example. So what we've spent in fuel and the savings offset, we're already in the black.
okay, it's probably gonna be close though, because you're not,
The number that's there on the paper is only for fuel oil. It's absent of the natural gas components that
Right.
was normalized out for the baseline, as well as the electrical component. So
yeah, I understand that.
200,000 in savings.
Okay. The other point, on the spreadsheet you have here, you mentioned that the 1314 is for the 4 buildings only?
No, it's for.
You don't have Haviland here for some reason.
The Haviland is included in the 1314 numbers. It's definitely included because we.
So you don't mention that on the top of the sheet here. That was my question to you.
The only difference from 1213 to 1314 is that Violet Avenue Elementary School and Hyde Park Elementary were converted to natural gas. However, we did have to take money earlier this year out of fuel oil to fund the natural gas as we underestimated our natural gas consumption as it was the first year that we generated the code. So there's no direct reflection in the documents in front of you, but earlier in the year we did have to move money to add to the natural gas costs.
Okay. But we're still at the point where we need 185,000 to balance that budget.
That estimate is to top off our fuel tanks as well, which has been a.
Which you've been doing that each year anyway, right?
So we've experienced, I was looking at just to get fresher numbers, between a 20 and 35% increase in heating degree days year over year. So that was definitely a factor in our fuel consumption. Another factor were the plant failures, specifically at Haviland Middle School, where we ran the plant 24/7. And the cost savings that we've experienced through the synergistic-based program is absent of the Haviland figure because we ran that plant nonstop. I mean, we did everything possible to make as much heat as we could in a building with a failing system. So
Right.
there were certain areas, and even at times, we had similar experiences with FDR High School as the boiler conversions were in progress, where we had to burn an inordinate amount of fuel in excess of anticipation because it was the first year that the new systems were turned on. So I know that there's a concern about how do we now repeat this next year. There was a lot of excessive fuel burn-off this year with new boilers that were not calibrated, that were not finely tuned. Although they are rated as high efficiency units, that's the first year that we've had them. And they weren't tuned and constantly tuned throughout the year the best way they could be. And given that our second largest plant was running 24/7 nonstop, which we hope this year we don't have to do given the excessive repairs that we've done to the system, all speak to savings that we expect next year that aren't reflected in this year and unfortunately led to our deficit in the fuel oil code.
Okay, I understand that, but you might need to rewrite your report because I don't see anything here that says Haviland Middle School. It's got all the other buildings listed.
It may have just been an erroneous submission.
Yeah, that's a big omission. I mean, that's the
The grand total numbers are for fuel oil expenses throughout the district.
or district-wide.
District-wide,
Okay.
absolutely. If we mislabeled it, I apologize.
Okay.
All right, well, as long as you're talking to Wayne, I'm also concerned about the retirement incentive. We should know when we're doing the budget, how many people are gonna retire. And to have, it looks like 4 extra at the end of the year, is that what this is?
Yeah.
There's at least, that's about 4, maybe 5, depending on what everybody gets. But that seems another area where we should know that. I mean, don't they have to say by February 1st that they're going to retire?
I don't think it's is it by February 1st? I'd have to double check the date.
Well, before we do the
It's April.
budget, anyway.
It's late, it's April 1st, and by April 1st, we're in a, well, we probably should have upped it on April 1st, and we probably didn't want to change our budget presentation.
It's another
Right.
considerable amount of money.
had
I'm
a-
saying that.
Oh, that
So-
money comes out of which budget, Greer? The ones that, the teachers that are retiring this year, at the end of this year, their incentive comes out of the budget we adopted last year? We're guessing a year in advance how many teachers are going to retire Or how many people are going to retire? That's the thing I'm unclear about.
I'll double check on that.
Okay. All right, so I'm happy we have a budget and we have the money and it did pass and we're okay. I just want to make sure we're okay for subsequent years.
Always
Okay.
looking to the future.
I know. So moving on.
I think we need to approve that.
Oh, we need to vote on, I'm sorry. All those in favor for the budget transfer? Opposed? Thank you very much. Let's see, where are we? Lost my
Special
place.
education service plan?
$10.3.
I guess, well, we have to vote on the special education services plan. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Some, second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for a 10.4, increase in hours.
So moved as expressed in the agenda.
A second?
Any discussion? All
What's the reason for that?
I can,
It's going to a full 8-hour day, so
I
just,
can take it. It's bringing that one position to the same as all the other nurses.
okay.
And when the nurses became part of the HPTA contract, they cannot get benefits if they're less than full-time. So that position always had benefits, and the former person who's retiring was grandfathered in, and she had benefits, but we would then be, if we didn't increase the position, we'd be hiring a full-time nurse with no benefits at about $30,000. So we didn't think we'd find an RN to take that.
We have Regina Cheli 8-hour day too?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
brilliant.
all the schools are an 8-hour day?
Right.
It's just bringing it up to.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. May I have a motion for 10.5, memorandum of agreement with the HPAA?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Well, I'd like to thank the HPAA for settling this with us, and I hope we move on. And all those in favor? Opposed? No? Good. I have a motion for 10.6, side letter of agreement, CSEA, as is listed in the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, if you can follow it.
Oh, you mean make sense?
That was just a commentary.
Okay. All those in favor?
It was very
Opposed?
confusing language.
Thank you. That's why we have lawyers.
Mm.
May I have a motion for public participation, please?
So moved. Second.
You have a
All in
second?
favor? We vote? Yeah.
Yes, we have to vote now.
Yeah, okay.
Comment?
We didn't vote yet, though, did we?
Oh,
That was my head.
no comments? All right.
Yeah.
All those in favor? I'm sorry. Something popped
I
up on
thought
my...
maybe I missed something.
It was like,
We passed the witching
something
hour.
popped up on my screen and I was looking at it. That's it. Okay, would anybody like to address the board? Those of you who are still here.
Wore them down.
Oh, participation. Yeah, see, we're on the same wavelength. I was looking down too. Would you like to speak again?
I believe I didn't, this is my problem, I didn't explain the situation teachers are facing clearly enough. The teacher who had to remove 66 boxes of material because of maintenance will now, according to the memo I received from Cora today, have to box those 66 boxes up again this summer. Her neighbor across the hall, whom I know will likely have 98 boxes, and so on. The memo from Cora today was quite clear. The expectation of the district is that we remove all personal items from our rooms for the summer. To paraphrase, we are being directed to clean out our rooms. And I'm somewhat stunned that the board members aren't reacting to the notion of how much work is entailed in this. I'm curious for some of the board members to weigh in. Do you really think it's fair and reasonable to expect us to individually box up all our materials? And I'd like to know if you think that's a respectful way of treating the teachers in this district.
Anybody else? Joan?
I'm Joan Miller. I'm the Ward Elementary School and also a parent member of a Haviland Middle School student. I'm just going to begin by saying what my students often say to me. I don't have one thing, I have two things to say. So I'm going to start with just acknowledging my sister. She's not here, but my sister is Gina Valenti. And it was very heartwarming to hear the positive things that people had to say about her ability to teach, especially from her students. Something I've always known, I can say from personal experience that she saved me on countless occasions when I had to write the English paper, always offering new vocabulary, wonderful phrase. So it's something I've always known that she has a strong impact on educating our students. So I guess I would like to advocate to continue the Latin class, especially knowing that the numbers are high, because I know that those students' lives will be impacted in a positive way. And thinking ahead to, as my daughter approaches FDR, I would like those classes to be available to her, including honors classes, AP classes, the computer classes that the woman spoke about today. I think that's very important, and I do see a movement to lessen those classes recently, and I just want to be a voice to say, please continue those classes for our students who want those opportunities, especially since the numbers show those students can participate and want to participate. My second thing is I want to thank Nancy for speaking up on behalf of the teachers regarding the protection and safety of our personal belongings. I would also like to thank Kevin and Greer for their willingness to speak up and recognize the amount of resources that teachers do purchase to provide our students with a solid education. I feel compelled to continue the discussion and possibly just give some food for thought. Teachers are always willing to share their materials, and I believe in the summer school case that we would be willing to do that, even our personal belongings. I think maybe I do want to say that I don't want to have pack up 66 boxes and unpack them. It's a daunting task to do that in August when we come back, and we are back early in August doing that. I don't want to have them moved, whether they're moved by the district or by my own truck that I bring in. I want them to remain where they are. I want us to be able to secure them. I want us to be able to say these are personal. Please don't use these materials. But I'm sure we are willing to share. But maybe the conversation needs to, for our teachers who are going to teach, maybe they need, I don't think they were pilfering things, ready to steal. I don't think Nancy believed that, but things were gone through, and I think maybe the reason was because they needed these things. And maybe those things need to be available. Maybe a checklist of, maybe a survey needs to go out. What do you need? What materials you need before summer school begins? Maybe a conversation that whoever is housing the summer school, if we have a checklist of knowing what these teachers need, we can have those available, but we should also have the opportunity to secure our personal things that we don't want to touch. So I'd like that conversation to be continued. And I would like to keep my personal belongings in the school, knowing that, you know, there are chances that people will go through them, but I want to be able to say, I trust my colleagues if I put paper up and say, state, please don't touch them, that they won't. But I think we need to have things available that they need. Also, the things that we are budgeted to have, we don't necessarily, if teachers do take them over the summer school, then we're in the negative in September. So maybe there needs to be, I don't know if there's a separate summer school budget, but those supplies need to be available for those teachers. And maybe a checklist of what are those things if the teachers who are in the classrooms have that, we can have those out and ready for them, and then the other things we can look up. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have a motion to close public participation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Let me just comment first. Since Cora's not here and she wrote the memo, and I haven't heard her side of the story yet for her reasoning, I would be hesitant to make a comment on that. I will say your arguments are compelling. They sound reasonable. I just haven't heard the other side of the argument yet. Perhaps, if I did, we could talk about the moving of non-instructional personal items, something in that line, something, I don't know how you define that, but I'm just saying, for me personally, I would like to hear both sides of the equation before I make a decision on it.
Yeah, I mean, since we're being asked to weigh in, I would agree. I think that there's probably a lot of different dynamics. I don't know what's going on in your rooms during the summer, whether it's construction or whatever it might be. I mean, if you've got personal items, I guess there'd be two different options. One is, and I would be in favor of that we would provide the necessary cartons, for instance, so that you could pack it. I would encourage you to pack your own, because the other option is that perhaps we would use custodians or aides or someone else to pack it that may not be as careful with it as you might be. And I recognize it's an effort there, and I would hope that you'd be given enough time to be able to do it, so it's not all the last 2 weeks of June. Perhaps, I can say from experience that if in February, for instance, you can start, as things are no longer necessary, if you've finished an area of a curriculum, you could box certain things up and put it away. So I think it really, I agree. I think I'd like to, we need to hear from Cora as to what the reason is. I'd like to get, facilities should be involved as to what the reason for the room being boxed up. Do things have to physically be moved? I mean, the other side of it, I'm assuming that we clean we're doing some heavy duty cleaning in your rooms every year. Floors typically stripped and waxed, light fixtures, everything gets cleaned. So there's a need for, some tidying, and I know what these rooms look like. And actually, one of the comments I was going to make earlier is when I walk into a classroom and I see the stuff that a teacher brings into the classroom, generally it's a good sign of engagement. I mean, I see it as a very good sign when I see that a teacher has things, whether they're district owned or whether they're owned by the teacher. It's a good thing because it creates, it's a creative environment, and it really is a space where I think students want to be versus one that is more stark and sterile looking, and particularly, and it happens more in the elementary schools, I think, than in high schools. But so I do really appreciate it, and so I think there's a dialogue there. I mean, I don't think that I think we need to get Cora involved, and if I can be of any assistance in trying to help come to a logical solution. But I think we need to get all the people in the same room to talk about it. I don't think it's a black and white. And I think that we should use our resources. If we're asking for a classroom to be moved out, maybe there's a solution. We give you the cartons and we say, you pack them, put them next to the door, and we'll take them out. Whether we take them to a storage facility or a place of your preference, or maybe we've got space in another classroom. But I assume things have to be moved anyway for some purpose or another. So, yeah.
Since we've been asked to comment, I will. I didn't earlier because I know for a fact that we need a second executive session. It's already late, but so I reserved comment because I thought anything useful had already been said. However, I will say that I have been concerned going back several years, perhaps a decade or more, since I became aware of the fact that teachers are buying their own materials. I think there's something wrong with an environment where teachers are compelled to buy their own materials. It seems like that's something that should be supplied by the school system. I would go further and say that I think there's something wrong with the system where we ask our students to show up in the first weeks of the school year, dragging tens, maybe hundreds of dollars worth of supplies with them. Again, it seems like we should be able to leverage our superior purchasing power as a school district to do that for the public good. So I'm concerned about that conversation entirely, but that's an issue that I can't get traction on. However, since the situation exists, I was under the impression already that there's going to be further dialogue on the issue. It does seem unreasonable to ask someone to move that much material. It seems like it could be secured in place, if at all possible.
All right. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Move on to board subcommittee reports. I know there was a tech committee meeting. I missed it. But
It didn't happen.
Oh, it
No.
didn't happen because I
It-
missed it.
No, you know,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we didn't know whether it really,
It was scheduled, and I think it was rescheduled at my request. And since then, a mandatory meeting was superimposed on my schedule.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize. So
Okay.
unfortunately,
Forrest and I utilized the time to catch up on other things, so. it
Okay.
was- we-
Any other subcommittee meetings?
Yeah, there was an energy subcommittee meeting Wednesday, last night? Last night. And I would say it was more of a recap and also kind of a focus looking forward. I don't have any notes with me, but, you know, and it was a little sparsely attended. One of the things we also discussed was looking for perhaps additional people from the community to join the committee. You know, we've had some members who have been active, and they kind of drift on and off, and we definitely would appreciate having more, and we've talked about how to recruit that, threw out some names.
Any others?
Doug, usually at this point in the meeting, there's an agenda item for general conversation. It doesn't appear to be on this one, but I just wanted to mention that I have an interest in, one of the things the tech subcommittee is talking about has been getting Chromebooks for use in the school, in the classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
That's a technology that I am not really familiar with, and I personally would like to trade in my laptop for a Chromebook in order to get that kind of experience.
Okay, we
Since
haven't
all
actually got them at the moment, but yeah,
Well,
when we get them,
Yeah,
I
but,
think that's a good idea.
yeah, I'm bringing it up in public because
Yeah.
we need to discuss any expenditures for board
Absolutely.
members in public. So I don't know that a specific resolution needs to be drafted and passed, but it at least needs to be discussed.
We can have a, no, I don't think we need a discussion. I think if anybody on the board, I would like to use one for board stuff, just to see the capabilities. But I don't think we need to have a resolution, but we should have the discussion in case anybody, because you and I know, because we're on the tech committee, but should anybody else want to try them, and I think that we should also hand them out to some other folks in the district to get feedback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good.
Maybe we should just back up one sec. Why do we want Chromebooks? Chromebooks are one of the devices we're looking at to be provided for the state requirement for being taking the testing electronically and uploading the information electronically. We're looking for an economical solution that can also be used throughout the rest of the school year by students.
Okay. We move on?
Just one other thing, though, the Dutchess County School Board Association had their annual dinner last Thursday?
Last Thursday.
Yeah, last Thursday. We had a nice speaker from, can't remember the gentleman's name, an attorney from the School Board Association, State School Board Association, came down, talked about some of the legislative actions and goals. And it was also to honor any school board members that are going to be leaving members, of which we have Mr. Watson was recognized as leaving the board, and an appreciation of all of his years of service.
I think we'll have a little something extra towards the end of the year, but, yeah.
It's coming soon.
Not that I'm, but,
I think it's in 2 weeks.
yeah.
Okay.
You talking about that bonus check we plan to get him?
Nothing legal.
But that's what these are.
I thought we were publishing the video we have of his
No,
Skyping from
no,
the
no, no,
hospital.
we're not doing that. We're not going there.
No
No, we're not going there.
No pictures.
You captured that?
Okay.
All right. Upcoming meetings. The next board meeting is June the 26th, 7 p.m. at Ralph R. Smith Elementary School.
God willing, I'll be.
That would be down in the cafeteria. Okay, we do have a need for another executive session. So may I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
Second.
Everything.
Need to state the
Same
purpose.
thing that was on before.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
need to
sorry.
state it publicly so the public knows what it's for.
Yeah, it's for, discuss, where's my little cheat sheet on the back there? Confidential matters pertaining to the employment, future employment, history of a particular person or persons, and the employment of a particular agency, and matters of litigation. Have a motion, please. Oh, we do have a motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? We're now in executive session.